and sure and certain confidence in our Lord. Please be seated. My friends, my brothers and sisters in Christ, my companions in the way of Jesus. This has been a week of strong emotions. Am I right? All the way around. Regardless of whether you are rejoicing or weeping or scared or numb, I'm guessing that all of us are just plain wrung out with the length and the bitterness and the hostility that has just about torn our country in two. Strong emotions, strong convictions, strong dedications. We are a powerful people. We are people who feel and who act and who do. And so I would urge you to pause. To take a step outside the feeling and the acting and the doing. To pause so that you can strengthen that part of you that is what we call the observer. The part of you that is not reactive or proactive or easily swayed like a willow in the wind. Take a minute, maybe every day. Take just a minute to sit quietly, to listen to the sounds around you, to the actual sounds around you. The sound maybe even of your own breathing. Now, why would you do this? Why would you do this in what seems to many people as an apocalyptic sort of time? A time when certainties are crumbling and that there's little center that holds. Why sit and listen? Just listen. Without doing, without reacting, without emoting. Because it gives you practice. It gives you daily practice in being a member of a group of people who can stand firm and grounded and non-anxious in troubling times. A member of a group of people who are not blown around by whatever happens to be happening in the world. And for some on the world stage, what is happening at any given time can be truly life-rending. I spoke this week with a friend who works internationally and who knows people who are faced with the possibility, real people who are faced with the real possibility of torture and indefinite imprisonment. So it's good to keep perspective. To keep perspective. And it's good to be still for at least a little bit every day. And it is good to look around us and to see what God is doing for good. Because the truth is we can be of no help, no service, no comfort, or guidance. We cannot follow Jesus unless we are able to sit at his feet, even if it's just for a few minutes, and relax into his presence and his power. And locate that place inside of us in which we trust that God truly is, as Isaiah said, creating a new heaven and a new earth. Now that's probably not going to be complete in our lifetime, in our earthly lifetimes. But we, my friends, we are part of a grand project that God is doing, this new heaven and this new earth, where we do not labor in vain or bear children for calamity, where no one will hurt or destroy anyone else. That's good news. But you know what the really good news is about this? We aren't in charge. It's not our blueprint, fashioned after our sometimes very warped ideas of what constitutes ethics and justice and order. The blindingly good news is that God is in charge. And God is providing the materials and the plans for this new heaven and this new earth. It's God's blueprint. And thus it rings true, and it rings fair, and it rings just, and it rings joy to borrow Three Dog Nights sentiments. It brings joy to the world, all the boys and girls, joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea, joy to you and me. Joy for all the people and all the creatures around the earth. What matters right now is that you're here in God's house among Jesus' followers. And I'm so glad to see your faces, to share this time with you. So can you just turn right now to your neighbor and shake their hand? Would you just greet your neighbor and look at them and see how glad you are to see them? It's good to be here. It's good to share this time. I regularly walk up East Peak. Y'all know what East Peak is? It's that mountain in back of the church here. So I regularly walk up there. Sometimes I grab Letty. We just did it on Friday. It's about a 10-minute walk up. You get some elevation gain, so it's good for your heart, your lungs. And it's beautiful up there. And now we have Stations of the Cross along the way. So that makes it even better. So this past Wednesday, Wednesday was, it was an emotional day. This past Wednesday, I walked up and I took 10 minutes to sit on one of the benches up there beside the cross. And I just sat in silence, just listening. And eventually I heard a tiny frog chirping away. Very tiny frog. Tiny frog. And that frog croaked endurance and hope and the goodness of God's earth. And I swear that frog encouraged me and all of us with his insistent froggy croak. Mark out territory for God's new earth and God's new heavens. What Jesus called the kingdom of God. Mark it out every single day by what you focus on and by what you give witness to. Mark it out and give your life to it. This new heaven and this new earth. God's kingdom. Give your life to it. Give it your attention. Give it your resources. Give it your all. And that's a lot for a little frog to croak, right? But that's what I heard. My friends, Jesus' disciples were taken up with the power of the temple, which was also the power of the state. And he redirected their attention. Just before our gospel reading, he had redirected their attention to a widow who was utterly dedicated to God's kingdom, who gave everything she had. That's who he pointed to. They were all busy pointing at the stones and the power and all of this. Look at the widow. Look at the widow and the orphans. This, Jesus said, this is where to direct your attention if you want to direct it for eternity. This is to what you can testify. This constant goodness of God who is creating and sustaining and figuring things out in the heat of the moment. This trustworthiness of God who will provide you with wisdom and the endurance to continue to do what is right and to live in joy. Yes, there may be wars and rumors of wars and climate collapse and economic chaos and the coldness of indifference. But we endure as a people of the resurrection, a people of constantly renewing hope, and a people who stand together in Christ, marking out territory for the beautiful and eternal reign of God, the kingdom of heaven. Kingdom of heaven. Now, I saved our psalm for this part of the service. So what we're going to do now is please stand as you are able. And join with me in our psalm canticle that's appointed for today. And you'll find it in your bulletin. And we will say it together. Surely it is God who saves me. I will trust in him and not be afraid. For the Lord is my stronghold and my sure defense. He will be my Savior. Therefore we shall draw water with rejoicing from the Jeff Honey saved this witness. Please stand. This witness of one of the good things that God is doing in our midst, and that is Christy Nunes is going to speak to us about living generously through her experiences at the warming shelter and the women's shelter.
This is so not my comfort zone. Well, I just give a little background. About 6 years ago, a group of Christian women formed They Are One, and I'm sure so many of you have heard of the organization. And we primarily worked in Niamey, South Sudan, and currently we're working in Haiti. And all the board members have traveled to Haiti and to Africa, but I was the only one that hadn't. And I just had this that calling that is deep within you, that God often does, to start something locally. And at first, it was kind of a nudge, God kind of nudges you a little bit. And I said, I don't have time, I've got 3 little kids, my husband's traveling. And then God shoved me and said, this is actually not your time, it is my time, let's go. So about 2 years ago, I started They Are One Local. We all started They Are One Local. And one of our first projects was working at the warming shelter, which I know so many of you have been there and served there and made food and cookies and brought your love there. It was on Lincoln Street across from the police station, and about 40 to 60 people would come in, and they get a warm meal and a little foam mat to sleep on, and they can sleep there all night, and they can choose to leave if they need to. And that is kind of where we started. And from there, we have had many adventures. We met a family there, and they thankfully got out of the shelter and got home in Seaside. And this is where the Jim and Tim moving company started. And Chuck Olson, Tomasi, lots of people came, and we helped kind of settle them in. So that was one of our first projects. And now the warming shelter has moved. It is on 20 West Market Street. And it's only been open since November 1st, but already it has changed. We have a very large population of families in Salinas that are living in their cars. So on Friday when I was there were 11 children, which if you can remember ever being at the warming shelter, it's typically like 90% men, and this is different this year. It is frightening. 11 children, who thankfully are not in their cars, but are now at the shelter. So we need to figure out how to support them and make them comfortable, and that is definitely a priority right now. But the women's shelter, which is by Natividad Hospital, is full. There's a waiting list, and that is also frightening. But we have done a lot of work at the women's shelter the last year, and I think one of the things about the women's shelter, Ginger Steiner, I don't know, many of you probably know her, she's the president of They Are One. We met with a very nice woman before we started working at the shelter, and she sat us down and said, you probably won't last working at the shelter, at the women's shelter. No one will show up, maybe 1 or 2 will, and it'll be frustrating. You will have prepared a program, you will have brought food, and no one will be there except for maybe 1 or 2 women and their children. Well, and of course They Are One comes from Mother Teresa's quote, if you can't save 100, just save 1. So we're like, that didn't bother us. So we went, and the first time we went, I should back up. We had big plans. we decided that, well, if we're going to do this, we are going to like make a difference. We are going to go in there. We are going to do finance classes. We can do nutrition classes. We can parenting classes. I mean, we had like big dreams. And we decided the first time we go in, we'll just be, we won't scare them. We will just go in and bring a little craft and a little art project for the kids. So we did. So we went in and we loved on the kids and we loved on the moms and we laughed with them and we cried with them and we prayed with them and they all came. They came from their rooms. They came out because they felt the love of Jesus. We were in there and we had no agenda. Like we just loved on them. So we came back the next month and they all came. There was last one was like 11 women and kids coming out everywhere. It was crazy and amazing. It was so amazing because we threw all of those big agenda ideas and just brought the love of Jesus. That's what we did. And we learned such a big lesson. God totally spoke to us. And we realized that sometimes you just got to show up and just have the love of Jesus because there's no greater gift that you can bring to a room than the love of Jesus. And that was such a big lesson for us. So